I hope that wasn't distracting for those who are more, let's keep it the way it's supposed to be. I'm just going to ask you in the spirit of today to be forgiving. You with me? Generosity of spirit. Because I think this is so important. It is integral to our being. It's what Jesus wants us to be, forgiving. I'm not always that forgiving. I might even say outside, I forgive you, or no problem, but inside, still haven't reconciled it, still a problem, huh? We're all trying. Small things, big things. Forgiveness, the number one issue of Jesus. That's why today we could have done with one of these little parables, but he hammers us with three because it's so difficult, it's so hard to really imbibe this on the spirit level. Maybe even for ourselves, the stuff that we've done in life, stuff in the past, when we look back and we can't forgive ourselves or think, it's very presumptuous of ourselves to say, oh, I'll forgive myself. Are we cutting ourselves slack? Maybe God's not going to do that. To forgive another person when we still haven't processed the hurt or whatever it is that happened or didn't happen that we wanted to have happen. It's so complex. It's so multi-layered. We put so much energy into so much nonsense in this life. Who cares what color it's going to be? Who cares if I'm being a little bit wise guy, right? This is the stuff that needs our energy and our attention. Because the colors and all those other earthly things that I and all of us get caught up in aren't the things that we carry on with us after the last breath. It's this stuff. Are we going to realize almost instantaneously, why did I hold on to that? Why did I hang on to that for so long? Why wasn't I able to break through that? That's me. I can feel it already. Jesus, have a forgiving and generous spirit because this is how God is with us. I asked at the beginning of the readings, not just to listen to the words and the stories, but to pay attention to the turn of events in people's hearts. Even God in that first reading, so beautifully proclaimed, even God in that first reading has a change of heart. Thank God for Moses. Come on, God. Why would you do this? These people, the golden calf, we're moving on. All right, and it says in that beautiful last line, so God relented. And then Paul. I almost don't think that in the readings we hear them as emphatically if we were to listen to him in person, because it's just black and white, huh? Can you imagine him trying to convince people like I'm actually trying to do today, myself and all of us here today? Could you imagine him going don't you understand? Do you know who I was? Do you know what I did in life? You have no clue. You have no clue who I was and what I did. We just hear words like, I was once a blasphemer and a persecutor and arrogant. What does that mean in black and white? And Letitia, the way you read it, it slowed me down, and I thought to myself, let these words sink in. He acknowledged who he was. He was probably trying to convince people, I was a blasphemer. That's the worst thing back in the day. I was an actual persecutor. I persecuted people who said, I love you, who followed Jesus and fed people and went to the margins and gave people 17 chances. I went after these people because they weren't following the rules just right. They didn't do everything in just the right way because I'm a perfect rule follower, Paul the Pharisee says. He goes, I was so arrogant, I was so full of myself. Do you feel any of that inside? I do at times. I hate it. We get so darn self-righteous because we've been taught and trained to follow and do things the right way. We get our gold stars, we get our stickers, we get moved on, and we are rewarded. And it doesn't work that way with God. I'm not saying, and God is certainly not saying, throw all the rules out. Not even close. But God's saying when we do mess up and get outside the nice, neat black and white rules of church or society or life, when we have that change of heart and start to get back on track, that's what God's interested in. Are you and I interested in that stuff? How forgiving are we with our kids? How forgiving are we with our parents as they age? I'm not even going to go into how forgiving are we as spouses and couples when and if somebody strays, screws up, even worse, betrays, lies, and hurts. That's a lot of stuff to process. And I'm not going to stand here in the middle aisle and say, so, come on, forgive. Let's all. That's got to get worked through, huh? But how is what we're hearing today informing how we deal with all of these messy, heavy, intense issues? I was once so arrogant, Paul said, but I've been treated mercifully, me, because I acted out of ignorance, because I didn't believe. The grace of Jesus has been so abundant. Of this I am sure. Of God's love and forgiveness, I was treated so mercifully, I need to pass this on to other people. Notice the shift and the change that happened in him. I was with some good friends recently, really good friends. And we were wrestling with all kinds of things. You have church teachings and church rules and laws. And they're there for a reason. But one of the things that came up was, who can come to the table? And there is a process for that. But I always felt that if somebody was so moved to commune with Jesus, even though they didn't go through all the right steps, I always felt like I was going to err, whatever the right word is, pronunciation, on the side of generosity. Because one never knows what's going on in another person's heart. And as I was talking with my friends, we were of the same thinking. I don't think Jesus is going to say, you haven't followed the rules just perfectly, so you can't come to me yet. You have to be in a particular state to receive me. That's not John Unni's 2019 interpretation and version of coming to communion. I think it's Jesus. Oh, wait a minute. How did the gospel start today? Who was it all drawing near to listen to Jesus, eating with Jesus? Who was it? Oh, the tax collectors, the sinners, the people who didn't have the perfect lives, the people who didn't walk a straight line all the time. But they were so moved on the heart level that they came to him. Who are we to keep somebody away from communing with Jesus, right? They were even saying, can you believe this Jesus actually welcomes people who don't have their act together? Sinners. He actually eats with them. Do you know, for the Jews, eating back in the day was like us today, sacramental. It was a communal experience. It was communing. It was intimate. Not like us. We drive through, we have stuff delivered, all this kind of stuff. It's fast, it's all, and then, that's why you being here today says so much about you. Taking the time out of a Sunday, a beautiful Sunday, you know it's not short, parking and stuff, and we gather at this table to break bread, and it's not drive-through, and I'm hoping it's not fast food, I'm hoping it's not fake food, I'm hoping this is real food that Jesus talks about to get into our hearts. Are you with me? And then we leave this table and go out into the week with our minds, our hearts, and our lips changed. He gives us the story of an irrational shepherd. Who the heck goes after the one sheep? I think, and I'm in the shepherd business, I think I'm like, all right, you know, let's cut our losses. It's one sheep. Come on, 99, let's go this way. Right? I mean, that's my thinking, right? But he's trying to get the point across. Because you know what sheep do? Sheep will follow a lousy leader right into a ditch or into the heart of danger. And by the way, it doesn't just happen with sheep. An irrational shepherd who goes after that one. A zealous homemaker. I'd be like, all right, cut the loss again, it's a few bucks, move on, wasting too much time. He hammers it in. I'm telling you, there's more rejoicing in heaven going over one person who comes to his or her senses and starts to make a change. And then lastly, after the irrational shepherd and the zealous homemaker, we got this crazy parent, this crazy father. Are you kidding me? Could you imagine what he felt when the kid asked for his inheritance? So disrespectful, so hurtful. And yet, loves him so much to do it. I wrestle with this. I don't have it in me yet. I know I'm not a parent, but I'm feeling it. I'm like, what? And then the kid goes out, does his thing. We heard it all. And then that beautiful, beautiful line when the kid comes to his senses. Once again, that's what Jesus is hammering in. He had a turnaround. He repented, to use religious language. Huh? And it says this: while he was still a long way off, the Father caught sight of him. I want to imagine God, however we image God to be, to seeing us always from a long way off, watching us. Like maybe those who are parents in here used to watch your little kids before we grew up to see what kind of choice are they going to make? What are they going to do in this particular situation? That's how God is with us, watching while a long way off that change of heart. And even anticipating it, goes running out to meet him. Very uncharacteristic for an elderly Jewish gentleman of the day to do. Again, Jesus underscoring, because this is how God is. This is what God delights in, our turn of heart. And he goes out, he kisses him, he embraces him, and then the party. But is anyone here an older sibling? Hands up, please. Come on, be proud. I am too. I actually got both in me. I got a little prodigal and the older sibling. I would say it lives in all of us to varying degrees, huh? You know, you follow those rules, you do all the right stuff. And then when you see somebody else's generosity bestowed on somebody that you do not think is worthy of it, wow, what does that evoke in all of us? And we saw it in full force today in the gospel. That Father represents whom? God. And that God of ours only wants to give us everything that God has. That Father only wanted to give those kids everything that he had. One wastes it on high or low living. The other squanders it by being miserable, thinking he's a slave to his Father and never taking advantage of all that the Father had to offer. They were both screwed up in that way. I see both of them in me. Do you? We don't take advantage of what God is trying to put across, and that is mercy and love. The Father even goes so far as to plead with the older son and say, please, understand, it's about the turnaround. So this week, let's look at a couple of things within us regarding good rule following, trying to do the right thing, judging who's acceptable and who's not, and mercy. Number one, where is that self-righteous, unforgiving, rule-following part of us keeping you and me from what we just sang so beautifully in the psalm, keeping you and me from having a clean heart and a forgiving and generous spirit because we're so caught up in the rules? Number two, like St. Paul, where have you and I acted out of ignorance, pride, arrogance, And at the same time, when we've done these things, know that we have been so mercifully treated by God. This week, can we show a little mercy? And then third and last, where is that piece in you and me that is either the prodigal and or the older sibling that's in need of God's abundant mercy, the parents' abundant mercy, so that we can come to a deeper understanding of how we're called to be with each other. Let's be generous in spirit this week and show a little love.